Hello everyone. How have everybody today? Was the traffic too much or was it just fine? You guys could make it here on time. Thank you so much for choosing us over React Play Meetup. We do have an exciting event planned for all of you. So before that, welcome to yet another GeekyAnts Meetup Saturday. This time we are focusing on React Native. If you have been attending our meetups quite regularly, you might be seeing few little changes like the curtains, carpet, and obviously the photo booth. So who am I? I'm Sanna. Yes, that's how you can take the photo booth's inspiration to click pictures. I'm Sanna. I'm community executive here at GeekyAnts, and obviously the host for today. Uh, I go by Sanna Bara on Twitter, and on LinkedIn, I'm just Sanna Bara. So you can follow me over there for any meetup related updates. And if you have a talk or something that you want to share, you can obviously hit me up. I'll be able to coordinate a lot of things over here as well. If this is the first time you're attending or visiting Geeky Ants, let me tell you who we are in a glimpse. We are a design and engineering studio with user first AI approach. We are a community driven first company, and we focus on tech stacks as such as React Native, and Flutter. Uh, Along with doing all of these things, we love building amazing products. You might have heard about Native Base. We call ourselves the mad scientists behind it. And very recently, we have launched our new another open source project called GlueStack. It's a universal UI library tool. It can be used for any industry, and we have used it in a couple of projects as well, and we have seen pretty good results. So if you're interested, do give it a try. Additionally, we are an active part of the community, business community and tech community. We host a lot of meetups such as this one, and our speakers and our leaders speak at various conferences. Like very recently, last year, we hosted our first international meetup in London, and we had the chance to meet the folks of Amazon. And obviously, we attended React India, React Nexus, you name it, we are usually there. But that's not all what we are doing this year. We are organizing our own conference called the GeekConf. Uh, it's ready to open its doors it's happening on 25th of July, 2014, 2024. So COVID times. Okay. The theme is modern front-end and React Native, and the CFPs are currently open. So you can go to the website, thegeekconf.com, and fill out the CFP form. Let's head over to the code of conduct for this evening. Do not use any kind of hate speech. Inappropriate comments, please keep it light and breezy. Be respectful and refrain from using strong words. This is a space for growth and learning, so please promote that. Get to know your fellow attendees and speakers, and obviously, please network. Keep your questions for the panel discussion. We are doing a panel discussion in this meetup. We have all the in-person speakers along with our CEO, Sanket as the moderator. And also, please maintain silence while a speaker is on stage. But please don't keep silent. Taaliyon ki gunjahat गूंजती रहनी चाहिए when the speaker is on the stage, coming up on the stage. ठीक है? And let's get into the most important details, Wi-Fi, password, and details. So you can scan the QR code, or you can just connect to the password GeekyAnts, capital G, capital A, at guess, capital G 2023. We do know it's 2024. It's just our IT guy was on leave, I guess. So I'll give you 5 seconds to connect to the Wi-Fi. If not, if you guys are already connected, we can move ahead and let's get started with the event. To tell you more about where we are going with the React Native community, I would like to introduce you to our keynote speaker for the day, Shivraj Kumar. He's the Associate Director of Engineering here at GeekyAnts. And let's welcome him off on the stage.
Hey, hi everyone. Good evening. Just give me a sec. I'll just look it up. Yeah, good to see all of you have on a Saturday. Okay, let's get started. So I'm Shivraj. I'm an engineer at GeekyAnts. These are my social handles. Okay, yeah, let's get started on what's the state of React Native is at the moment. So some updates from the recent React Native, core React Native actually. So TypeScript by default. So we have TypeScript by default for React Native projects now. That means more accurate TypeScript declaration. And also the documentation for the TypeScript has been updated now in the React Native documentation. Support for Flexbox, gap, row gap, column gap properties has been also added, which kind of simplifies the layout and spacing in React Native now, somewhat similar to what we have in the web platform. New pops inspired by web standards for accessibility, styles, and events, bringing more, web standard APIs to the React Native has been also added. And also the prop types, which were removed very long ago, they were recently added, not particularly added, but temporarily restored just to help with the migration with the new architecture. Also, Kotlin is now the recommended language for Android apps built with React Native, and all the templates that we have on the native Android code, right, that is also updated in Kotlin now. Some more updates. Symlink support is now enabled by default, which brings improved capability with the mono setups and reducing the performance uh, overhead during bundling of React Native application. The support for Android 14 has been added with some update into the Java and also the Gradle of the Android part. And also the biggest upgrade on the new architecture, Vigilance mode has been rolled out. Earlier we had Turbo modules and also Fabric, which were rolled out to the new architecture, but now with Vigilance mode being updated, it is more or less now completely Vigilance for React Native applications now. Apart from that, there are some updates on the debugging side as well. Flipper has been deprecated, and a new experimental debugger has been added for JS debugging. I think currently it is experimental, but it has a lot of capabilities, so you should give it a try. Also, the documentation around debugging has been updated, so go ahead and have a look. Apart from the core updates in the React Native, there are a lot of updates on the in and around React Native as well. I mean, in the ecosystem. If we are talking about the React Native ecosystem, obviously we'll be talking about Expo ecosystem because it has been building a lot of tools around React Native. So some updates on the Expo side. Recent update, the SDK 50 has been released with that Expo router. Expo router has got a lot of capabilities in terms of bringing universal apps more to the reality. Also, DevTool plugins, which is kind of a what do you say, uh, which basically brings provides APIs for us to build browser-based plugins so that we can inspect our elements or any library that we are building for React Native more better. Apart from that, there were some improvements on ES build and ES updates, which is like the version upgrades of Xcode for web workers to build Expo applications on the cloud. Apart from that, also the full support for Expo modules has been added uh, in terms of TV application and macOS. Earlier, when we had to use Expo modules with TV applications or even macOS, there were some issues in terms of running that up. But now full support has been added for most of the Expo modules, so that's good. Yeah, apart from that, some other updates. React Native Storybook 7 is out, which brings a lot of features from Storybook 7. And recently, Call Stack released a forked version of React Native with the support of Vision OS. So that is exciting. And yeah, apart from that, there have been some developments around React Native with UI libraries as well. So which is like maybe GlueStack, which we are building, and also Expo Router, which is kind of bringing universal app to reality. So more and more application we would see in the future, which is kind of like universal apps. Yeah. So those were the updates in and around React Native. Apart from that, what we can expect in the future from React Native. So these are some updates in terms of what we'll be expecting going forward with React Native. Some advancement in and around the ecosystem, which obviously the Expo team is building around. There is some work going around for faster refresh in the core React Native. Apart from that, we have static Hermes coming in. Static Hermes is, I mean, Hermes brings a lot of capabilities for us to boot up the mobile application, React Native mobile application fast, and it has bring a lot of performance improvements as well. But with static Hermes, will we also be able to improve the performance of React Native application more? I mean, it's kind of adding a layer of static type checking on the native layer while compiling the code. So that will be good. So we'll be leveraging static type checkings there to build better performant mobile application, which will be kind of like very near to the native layers, right? So that is one thing. Again, serverless architecture embrace. So Expo has been building around a lot of ecosystem around React Native, right? They have also released Expo Router. With Expo Router version 3, they released API routes. With API routes, serverless architecture is also kind of something that we'll be able to do now. So that is a possibility now. Yeah, with things like Hermes, static Hermes, new universal UIs, and all those. I think we are moving towards more than web and mobile. We are also building tvOS application with React Native. Now we are building, we have an experimental Vision OS application that we can build. and already we have Mac OS and desktop application that we can already build with our different, I mean, the forked version of React Native. But yeah, that's the reality that we are moving towards. A recent update uh, from Meta that was, I think, released a couple of days back, which is React Strict Dome, which again is experimental at the moment. But with this, we would be able to develop fully accessible native component for each platform, which is again very exciting and also bringing a lot of capabilities to build a truly universal apps on the native platforms. We at GeekyAnts love React Native. We have working with it for a long time now, and we have doing a lot of experiments and all, building a lot of open source things around it as well. So these are some updates what we are doing at GeekyAnts with React Native. So recently we did a lot of experiments around React Native tvOS. So that's one screenshot of what we have been building. Also, we have been doing little experiment on the recent Vision OS experimental code base. So that is again something what we are experimenting and building around few things that we'll have more updates on. Apart from that, uh, th- we are also working on something similar to SATCN UI for React Native. We already have around 20 plus components available with it. And we also have a talk around this today by Viraj. He will be talking more about this. We also did a quick experiment with the recent update from Meta, that is React Stick Dome, to create a universal React app. So we'll be exploring more on that in the coming days. So keep watch on the Twitter to see more on that. Yeah, we have some amazing talks lined up for today. We have Ayush Singh from Disney Plus Hotstar. We have Rohit and Viraj from GeekyAnts and Anshdeep from Engati Technology. So yeah, let's get going. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shivraj. Please, a huge round of applause for Shivraj. Thank you for telling us. Thank you for telling us so many things about React Native and what we are doing here at Geeky Ants. All right, it's time to move ahead and bring forward our first speaker for the day, Ayush Singh. He is the front-end engineer at Disney Plus Hotstar. He's also product designer focusing on solving problem statements related to web performance, server-driven UI, and web animations. So let's hear more from him.
Hello, hello. Hey everyone, I am Ayush. I'm working as a front-end engineer at Disney Plus Hotstar. And today I'm going to talk about something different, a little different from what we are used to in our regular engineering workflows. I'm talking about the possibility of building a Codegen platform in a server-driven UI. So let's see, how can we make it happen? But first, let's understand what's the problem statement I'm talking about. So imagine a scenario where product designers would be able to just compose their designs and they will actually be automatically be converted into code. How good would that be, right? So that's the end goal, and let's see if we can tackle it and get our and carve our way towards it. So right, server driven UI has been really hot lately, and a lot of organizations have been adopting it, right? So it's obvious that in a fairly large organization you have a lot of product designers, have a lot of people in the engineering team as well, right? And they don't speak the same language because, of course, when you have a bigger teams, right, they are used to work in close silos. So is it possible to unify this language to an extent? Well, we'll get to it. But let me ask a question. Why should I actually be doing it? Is there any return of investment of doing this? Well, there is. So the biggest one being you will be able to save engineering hours because front-end engineers now would be able to focus their meaningful bandwidth on working on something else, working on building scalable components that could cater to different product tasks, right? And instead of regular workflow of composing the components which we're used to, right, we would be able to actually work on architecting them in a right way in a scalable fashion. And of course, this will also reduce the chance of errors. There's a uh, famous quote cannot get out of my head. If a machine and human can do it, then a machine should be doing it. So that's the thing. If we can automate this to an extent, that would be really great. And also, often less talked about aspect about this. Well, it will also help us build some empathy with designers. We'll be able to empathize with product teams better, and designers would be able to empathize with us in a better way. And of course, you might ask, well, this is not something new. To an extent, this might already exist. Yes, there are certain automated plugins and pipelines for generating those Figma tokens into automated PRs. There is also a workflow for generating the color tokens, and all of this exists. But today, what I'm really interested about in talking is a possibility of composing the components and generating the code out of it. So let's see. And of course, as I mentioned, this already exists. Well, I also experimented with something 2 years back and I built a Figma plugin, right? And it enabled to spit out HTML and Tailwind code out of your auto layout designs. But the thing is, the uh, this plugin or any plugin in the market for that matter cannot speak the same language as your framework. Your framework for your organization is unique to you, right? And there has to be a custom solution that you might have to build ground up. So that's the thing. So let's do a quick recap. I don't expect everyone to know about server driven UI. There nothing to worry about. I will be just talking about the overall architecture of how server driven UI is different from conventional way. So a server driven UI, unlike conventional UI, you have the capability to change the layout from a server response on the fly. How cool is that? Because think about it, we are used to write and compose components and hard code those components, right? If you have to generate a page for google.com, how would you be doing it? Well, you might build a menu component, you might build buttons, you might add a search input, and you'll just be hard coding those components for, let's say, Google homepage. But well, so what server driven UI will enable you is to have these individual components and individual atoms in your framework. And you just send a JSON response, hey, I just wanted to render maybe a menu component. I just want to render a container component. And you would be able to do it. So that's the paradigm shift, which is precisely server driven UI. And it, of course, makes everyone happy because you get rid of a conventional way of hard coding the UIs, right? So that's good. You are happy. You are able to ship things faster. So of course your manager would be happy about it. Personalization and A/B testing is also enabled, right? So product team is also happy because they don't have to wait for the deployment cycles. And let's, for the sake of this talk, let's build a small framework server-driven UI. Let's talk about certain components that we might be able to build. And I'll prove to you that with those components, I would be able to generate any layout on the fly. So in React Native terms, well, these are the core components that React Native API provides. View, scroll view, you are able to use these as containers. You have presentational components like text, image, text input. But I want to make an argument that these are pretty much everything that you might need for building anything, any UI for that matter. So think about it, right? You have a server-driven UI framework where backend speaks the same language as these atoms that I just talked about. And from the backend, you are able to get a response something like this, that, hey, if the component type is container, it might hold another bunch of components within it, right? And you might have an image component, you might have a text component, and a number of components that I just talked about. So with this tree structure, I would be able to render anything on the fly, right? And of course there might be some custom components, because of course for the semantic sake and for the sake of your use case, on the case to case basis, you might have, let's say, a card component, a button component, maybe you might need a carousel component. So that's fine. I mean, these can still exist. And what's special about server driven UI is, well, these components, the server also understands the contract and the props that you might inject into these components. So that's how server driven UI usually behaves. So that's good. We have established our server driven UI for now. And let's look at some sample UIs, if at all it's feasible to build such UIs. Well, for instance, if I talk about google.com, you might build it like, you might have a container. Within this, you might have another container and a menu component, bunch of buttons, another menu component, another button. uh, then you might have an image component. Again, the parent container might actually have some layout styling for y-axis. You can change it on the fly because you might have something known as layout props. So by driving the layout props, you would be able to do that. And yes, so you might have some container components that are actually dealing the y-axis, right? And in the x-axis, right? So that's very well possible. So you can build, of course, google.com like this. How about Instagram? It looks fairly complex. Well, yes, you again a container component, a parent container which might be in y-axis. Then you might have another container which is in x-axis with an image for Instagram logo. You might have some buttons on the right-hand side, button components. You might have a custom button just for story section. Of course, you can have something like that. For the sake of use case for Instagram, maybe they might have a card component. Within the card, they might have a carousel component. So that's specific to their use case. So I just wanted to prove to you, showing that you can build this UI on the fly using server-driven UI. In fact, that's how I believe Meta is also doing this. So yeah, we have established that server-driven UI is powerful. Let's look at the design part of things because we want to bridge that gap. So thankfully, actually, Figma provides a lot of capabilities to designers, and in a lot of ways, we are not so different because uh, designers also have this capability of something known as auto layout, which is pretty much like a flexbox system that we do have, right? So it's pretty much analogous. You have, if I show you this video, and yeah, designers also make use of this to lay out and position their elements. So there's a very well possibility you can transpile it to actual code. And of course, another powerful feature that Figma provides is the capability of generating components, which is pretty much what we do, right? We do have certain components. We are composing these components, right? And in fact, designers also compose these components just like us. So yeah, now that we have established that they might have some design tokens and we might have some components, let's bridge that gap. So thankfully, Figma also provides certain APIs for you to actually hook into a design and extract some meaningful information out of it. So of course, there is, uh, we'll get to that. I'll show you in a minute with a live demo actually. That would be better. And let's have a look at certain designs. So I just talked about google.com, for example. If I look at it, and if I do something called as Figma dot current page dot selection, I get something known as a live node. This is a live with a lot of getters, as you can see. I hope it's visible. I'll just make it a little bigger. And you see right on the left hand side, this is what a designer sees. These are containers, the menu, the text. These are the components that I just talked about. These are the components that exist in our server driven UI framework as well, right? And if I look at the tree, right, the tree structure out of it, Well, this is what I see. Uh, it has something known as type. This is, of course, what internally Figma uses. This is a Figma API. And it might also have different constructs. So, for example, I'm just focused on a container component, right? So, container might have another bunch of childrens, right? So, in a way, it's an array tree that you might get out of it. And we have established our component names, right? If design and engineering component names speak the same language, then we should be able to transpile these designs into actual code. How cool would that be? So these are the name of the components as I just showed you. This is container. Within this might have another bunch of children. This might have some layout properties like flexbox. So those can also be transpiled. Again, this container might be holding another container. There is an image. This container is, as I talked about this, let me show you this way. This is for google.com living in y-axis. And within this container, there is another container. This is probably for this x-axis containment. And this has two children, maybe another container, and within that you can actually find another container and image. This is for your image component. And just like that, you have the entire design as an array tree. So the idea is to generate this or transpile this component, this entire tree, into something that your framework understands, right? So yeah, that's about one of these designs. I can maybe show you another such design as well to make you believe that this is possible. And let's have a look at the selection. This is again a frame node, and this might have the same set of names and children. So we have established this, that these component names need to speak the same language. So if I show you a component name of uh, this component that I've just focused upon, this is again a container, right? So if we have a look at this from the left-hand menu, you can see I have established some of the uh, components that might live and that might exist for this specific use case for this organization, right? So this is a chart component. So again, this might be specific to this organization. They might have something known as chart component, for example, right? So that's about the Figma APIs that we have to our disposal, and it's really good. Now we just have to do is to transpile it to something that our server understands and our client understands. So let's see how can we do it. Well, what we can do is to take that live node, that container, that tree that I just showed you, and generate a model out of it. This model, which is actually contained to all the components that you might have in your system. And so, for instance, this model might have container node, text node, input node, image node. This is all that your code base understands, right? And what you can do, this is the intermediate node, by the way. This is nothing but what I just showed you, that we already had this intermediate node where all you have to do is to get rid of certain properties, because maybe I just don't care about constraints at all. I don't know what Figma constraint might be. So we can just simply rid of it and just have an intermediate node structure of this component. And going forward with this intermediate node, what you can do is to write a generator function. This generator would be responsible for transpiling this node into actual code and actual component. So let's see how we can do it. So suppose on the very right hand side, you can see we have some special handling for all the components that my system might understand. I might have container, image, text, menu, and n number of components. I just need to do special handling to transpile this into something that my backend layer understands, right? So let's look at a sample. Maybe let's look at how we can transpile our container node. So this is very important. On the line number 7, we see an instance of container node. This container node instance is uh, something which is a contract. A contract is something that you might have established from your server to your client, that hey, this is my understanding of props that I can deal with. And all you have to do is to take that node, that Figma node that I just talked about, and maybe it might have some children, right? So on line number 5, you just have to transpile, just run this recursive algorithm on those children again, and it might do the handling for the same types, all types of children, of course. On line number 7, as I have instantiated that container node, I can simply just pass those props that my container node understands. So maybe it just understands name and layout properties, right? It might only understand the properties of Flexbox. So I can very well do that. And of course, because this is a container node, it might hold any n number of children again. I can just simply pass in child nodes that I just transpiled. Those are again your uh, transpiled code that your server might understand. And if you do all of this, well, you would very well be able to generate automated PRs for something known as binder. A binder is your precisely a layer where in your server driven UI where your components live. So, and that's the end goal, of course, right? Because currently in most of the organizations, binder layer has to be done by manually by the front end engineers that are working at organization. So yeah, I think yes. I don't have the exact contract. Maybe we can discuss about it offline. So yeah, that's looking like a step in a right direction. And yeah, now what will essentially happen if you do all of this? You, when a client requests for a response, hey, I want to render a page. How should that look like? Well, you can just your binder layer would actually just spit out this JSON layout as a JSON, and you would be able to render that UI that I just talked about. So how cool is that? Well, uh, it goes without saying we should also acknowledge some of the shortcomings of the current system. Well, the first and biggest shortcoming is that if a designer makes some unauthorized edits to the components, so if I, for instance, just change the name of the component, right? So I have breached that contract, which I share with designer and my client. So that will break the system, right? Interactive components can also be tricky because, hey, I maybe would not be able to generate an animated component. I might not be able to transpile it into actual thing. So that's also tricky. And well, I also goes without saying, I should also acknowledge that l- this Codegen platform might be dumb in nature because action chaining, because you might want a button to do something, right? I have not defined that in my layer, right? So if I, even if I'm able to render button, that would do nothing, right? Unless I attach any action to it. So for now, Codegen platform cannot do that. And internationalization again is not handled because of course it may only transpile to the certain language that uh, your designer has provided your mocks in, right? So that has to be done manually. But yeah, I think it has definitely uh, reduced a lot of effort for front end engineers that they had to do for actually composing those components for the binder layer. So I think that's pretty much about it. We can take up, I can take up questions offline. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ayush. You guys can give another round of applause for him. Thank you for demonstrating how to build UIs of some popular application. All right, so let's move forward to our next speaker, Rohit Singh. He's a senior software engineer here at GeekyAnts. He builds dev tools and universal component libraries using React Native. He's also one of the co-authors of Native Base and GlueStack UI. When he's not coding, he enjoys playing guitar, singing, and gaming. So you can catch him later after the meetup for a singing session. So put your hands together for him.
Thank you, Sana, for that introduction. And yeah, so shorthand styling with React Native use style. That's the topic I'm going to talk about today. And I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. Yeah. So, yeah. Uh, ok- yeah. So, who am I? My name is Rohit, as Sana mentioned, and I'm a software engineer here at GeekyAnts. And this is my cat. Just kidding. It's a component library, not component library. It's a styling library I built. So I'm gonna talk about this today. And previously, I've worked on tools like Native Base for like close to 2 years, and then shifting to GlueStack UI, GlueStack Style. So that's the successor of Native Base. Viraj is going to talk about more in detail about that later on. We also have a discussion regarding how the library that I built is different from GlueStack Style. And so yeah, so in today's agenda, these are the topics that I'm going to cover. So why new styling solution is required, or like why I think it's required, or and how to use React Native Use Style. Behind the scene, how React Native Use Style works, and that comparison that I mentioned. But quickly, can you raise your hands if you are a React Native developer here? It's weird asking, but everyone can come here. Okay, nice. So this talk is especially for you if you are not if you are creating any component like any screens or any application with simple React Native without using any components, styled components. So this will intrigue you. Okay. So, but first, I want you to imagine a scenario. What if this can be written? And what if I can straight away write utility styles in my React Native components? So suppose your view can have a property margin top, and you don't have to create like something like this. You don't have to write style sheet dot create every time you want to style, and you don't have to define and maintain every names that styles dot container style dot text. You don't have to think about it. Just imagine this whole at scale. So wouldn't life would be easier and I don't know, happier? Well, this is where React Native use style stands. So I'll quickly tell you. So why I created this. So uh, it's just trying to simplify React Native styling. Well, styling for me, styling is cumbersome in React Native, and from someone coming from web, creating style sheets and passing it in my components again and again makes no sense. And I know there are hundreds of library to solve this, and you can create style components. Some to mention is GlueStack style itself, and Tamag UI, and even styled components. But they are doing a lot of things that I don't know need sometimes in my React Native app. And my use case is very simple. I want a better DX for me. So I faced a similar situation and I created React Native Use Style. So React Native Use Style stands for React Native Utility Style. Right? So what it does, let's see. So it's a seamless drop-in replacement for React Native that supercharges your development experience. And this library introduces configurable utility props for styling, hence the name React Native Utility Style. This is a line written by ChatGPT, so hence I'm reading it. Yeah. So it enhances your React Native components without adding any runtime overhead. And moreover, it is fully typed, providing the benefits of type checking and auto completion. So now you can just import text and view from React Native View style. Don't confuse it with another component library. It's not a component library. This will be removed on the compile time. So text and view will be imported from that, and you can write bg is equal to red, m equal to 8, p equal to 20, and all of these aliases which I'm talking about, it's configurable. So on compile time, this code will convert into something like this. I hope you can see. So React Native RNU styles underscore styles 0. That's something that you used to write previously. Now this library will take care of that. Yeah. So how to use it? So it's a simple three-step procedure. Just install React Native ustyle and set up the Babel plugin. Mind you, install both of them as a dev dependency, and then yeah, this is how you can include the Babel plugin. And then to set up the config file, just run npx rnu init. And the sweet thing is it's extremely small bundle size. Okay, but which you don't have to care about because everything is just dev dependencies, so everything will be removed from your application. So it's demo time. I'll quickly show how you can use it. Uh, I hope it's this is the font. So I've already yeah, I've already set up a expo plain expo project with TypeScript support, and let me get the IS. So as you can see, this yeah, this side is better. Yeah, so this is the app.tsx, and this is plain expo yeah dummy project, and it also has stylesheet.create everything in there. Yeah, it will do for now. Yeah. Yeah, so let's quickly jump to the terminal. So where is it? Okay. So I'll quickly install. Yeah. So I'm installing React Native ustyle and React Native the Babel plugin for that. And then just run npx run unit. Npx run. Mm, I think it will create the right repository. Yeah. So it's created a config file for me with all the typings, and now simply I can write React Native. I can replace it with use style. See, and let's move this style sheet to inside the view itself. So I'll remove this, and I'll write flex one, then bg uh, hash fff. Then so the config is somewhat similar to Tailwind. So you can write align center, which so, and then justify. Cool. Cool. So let's try to run the application. I think it should work. Yeah. Yeah. So due to tackle the caching, need to run every time you run, need to run it with a clear flag. And let's see. Should I need to write it in string. I think it was showing. That's showing type error. My bad. Did I saved? is the text. Let's change the text color as well. I have to code like this, no? Where's the pointer? PG center align item. I'm removing this. Let's restart for once. Huh? Oh yeah, yeah. I've not installed the Babel. I've not configured the Babel. That's the problem. My bad. I'm doing that. Live coding नहीं करना चाहिए. Now need to restart. Yeah. So the text is there on the top. Let's reattach the styles that we removed for centering. Yeah, so that's there. I'll do this. Yeah. So this is how you can use utility props, utility styles. And suppose I want to define a new config, a new token in my config. So for example, I want to write, that's showing column gap, right? So I'll add that. And I need to restart since this config is changed. I'll tell why we need to do that while explaining the Babel plugin. And you can see column gap property will be available here, and the typings will be there as well. So I think it takes a numerical value. So I'll write 4, and I just will update the text to have text. Okay. No, no, it's okay. The demo is almost done. So, yeah, so column gap 4, I'll change it to like 40. You can see it's updating or not. Think, yeah, something like that. You can define your styles, okay, and it will work. The demo is difficult to show like this. I'll bring back the slide. And yeah, so how it works behind the scene, I'll quickly explain. So this is why we need to run the Babel plugin again, because currently how it's built is the config file is fetched during the initialization of the Babel plugin. So if the Babel plugin is already initialized and if you have aliased your typings, then you need to fetch it again. And then so this code is for that. Then if you are aware of how abstract syntax tree works and have ever seen a Babel plugin's code, so this would be familiar for you. So so we start with the import declaration. Import declaration is simply your import statement that you have in your file. We'll check if that is equal to React Native ustyle, and then we'll fetch the components from there, all the components that are imported from React Native ustyle, and keep a track of that, and then replace the import name with React Native. Then the second step is to get the attributes that are attached, or the props that are attached to that specific JSX element that we tracked from the import. So this code does that. Don't mind about the utility props, utility functions that are being used inside. They are just logics. So JSX opening element will get the attribute, and then we can store that attribute and resolve the aliases from that. Yeah, this I already talked about. Then yeah, next step is to create that style sheet declaration, right? So I showed in the in the example, the transpile example, that the style sheets are declared on the bottom of your file. So this code does that. Inside this, the resolver runs and passes your code. Then the last step is to push that declaration. All done. And if you are interested, you can just simply search GitHub Babel handbook, and you'll find the first link. That's the best thing that you can refer to understand Babel, how it works. And ASPExplorer.net, you can refer that for like understanding the component tree, AST tree. And yeah, so quickly we'll compare React Native ustyle with GlueStack style, because it's the closest one to that. So the first and major thing that React Native ustyle doesn't even want to target is styled components. So GlueStack style provides you with styled components. If you pass a view, it returns a view with all the uh, properties that you want to be attached and the styles to be attached. But that's not ये हमारा वो नहीं है, मतलब goal नहीं है. And then runtime overhead. So as I mentioned, everything is removed uh, from your code at runtime, at compile time. So there's zero runtime. While with GlueStack style, we also try to achieve the similar goal, but due to a lot of features, some amount of runtime we have to handle it there. So it's close to zero runtime, but yeah, it's there. Then token resolution. So as of now, React Native ustyle doesn't have token resolution. GlueStack style has it. Variant support is also not the target. And last thing, both of them are fully typed. So whatever they do, they have full TypeScript support for that. You can find the docs here. So developit.versal.app docs/rnu. And please drop, if you like it, please drop a GitHub star on this GitHub repo. Also, yeah, so this is a side project, and I want to warn you, every one of you, don't use it in production apps, and just try it out. Let it be stable in some time, then maybe you can use it. But currently it's a side project, and things might break. Thank you. You can follow me on Twitter, and this is my website, so you can go and check it out. Yeah, so any question? So I think it's lunch now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you so much. Can we all give him a round of applause? It was quite an impactful talk. Uh, we have a quick, before we head into the break, can I ask everybody to move ahead in the front? We have something to show, to play, so you might not be able to see it from back. So just move ahead front. you guys had pretty good networking session and snacks. You can still take water and tea, coffee if you guys want to. So without any further ado, let's move on to the next speaker, Viraj Joshi. He's a senior software engineer here at GeekyAnts. He has over 4 years of experience in React and React Native, and he has become one of the co-authors of Native Base and BlueStack UI. He's also a core contributor of React Native itself. Apart from coding, his passion also lies in winning table tennis matches and cricket tournament like Geeky Ants Premier League. So let's welcome him on the stage.
Hello, hello. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Yeah, hi. My name is Viraj Joshi, and today I'm going to speak about using Tailwind CSS in React Native. So, bit about myself. I am a senior software engineer at GeekyAnts. Here's my Twitter handle if you want to follow me. Yeah. So first, let's raise. Everyone, just raise your hands, please. Quick, 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 quick. Everyone, just raise your hands. Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Both stretching. Right before the break. After the break, we can do a stretch. So now I know that everyone can raise their hands. So how many of you have started as a web developer first, and then get into the React Native? Quite a lot, right? Quite a lot. How many of you know Tailwind CSS? Oh, okay, so then you know Tailwind CSS and React Native as well, so I don't have to talk about it. That's it for my talk, I guess. Yeah, so jokes apart, let's start with the presentation. So what is Tailwind CSS? It is a utility first CSS framework which allows you to write in certain patterns your class names, and that you can customize your components using that. So let's see the example of it. So here is a basic syntax, or you can say a name, a way to write class names. So if you see img tag here, uh, in this slide, it has a class name which is w-24, and then h24, which stands for width 24 and height 24. So basically, Tailwind gives you a utility classes such as this. Also provides you a shortcut to writing large properties, right? Moving on, let's talk about style API, React Native style API, right? So whenever you see your style sheet, it looks something similar to this. So you write your code in CSS and JS, which contains a particular object which belongs to a certain uh, belongs to your certain views or a text or any other components. So here we have a container where we have flex1 margin top 8 background blue, right? So this is a pain to write, as Rohit also mentioned that the as you scale, these objects become more larger and larger, and it is very hard to find out which kind of which properties are involved in that particular CSS object, right? Uh, so there are lots of libraries which provides these kind of styling solution. One of these are our own GlueStack style. Also, Rohit's U style as well. There is a Tamag UI and other libraries as well. But today we'll talk about uh, something else. So basically, the problem here comes with when you write your React Native code and you want to run it on the web, right? So there are some challenges you face while writing this. First one is class name. So basically, whenever you write your React Native code, it is CSS and JS based. So there is no say first class name support for that. So in order to use that, you either had to rely on third party library, or there's one API which is only provided for the library authors by Nicholas, the creator of the React Native web. You can use that. Otherwise, there is no real support for the class name as of now. And the second thing comes with the static generation of CSS. So as we know, like React Native web is completely runtime, unless you do some magic with it, like we do in React Native like BlueStack style. Otherwise, it is completely runtime. And because of this, if you know currently the hyped up market in, uh, if you see React on the web, it is server driven, React server components. Next, Expo, Vercel, and every other component for React framework is pushing React server components. And this requires you to write your stylings in static CSS file, right? And that is the problem with React Native Web. So it cannot support React server components as well. So here comes our first savior of many of these solution problems, which is Native right? So Native gives you ability to write your Tailwind classes scripting kind of a thing to native elements. So we'll see. So here's the example. Here we have a style view where you can write your class name and it directly implements your class names into your React Native components, right? So we'll see why how it does it in after some time. But here's why you should use Native Wind, right? So consistent styling. There is a developer experience improvement as well as there's a performance improvement as well, cause we'll see how it does it. There is a maintainability of the code that happens as well. Also, it resolves all the other problem which React Native Web has: the static generation of CSS, the React Server component support. Also, it gives you a first class name support. So let's start with the architecture. So on the native side, it converts your class names into style object on the build time using Babel. Also it creates a map of it, that global map. So every class name, it maps into your particular css or css and js object. And that's about it on the native. It just on the runtime, it just create like it has a key of a class name, and it compiles those class css and js object and compose css and stylesheet.compose, right? And that works for React Native. On the website, it has its own unique syntax as well. So it adds some plugins and run a Tailwind engine on top of it. So it is able to create your CSS file statically. And also while also it uses React Native Web, and it creates like it pass those class names using a certain API which is only for library authors. So it is this syntax where you pass an object CSS true, and then was forwarded by your class names. Yeah, but we all know that as you scale, Tailwind doesn't scale at as much, because you require certain design guidelines, design systems, and component library as well on top of it to bring your own brand value and your entire ecosystem. So before that, let's see our journey as a GeekyAnts in this ecosystem of generating like component libraries. So in 2017, we launched native-based V2, and then after some time, we implemented design systems in native-based as well, and then we launched native-based V3 in 2021. After that, we created DSX, which is a tool for say a similar design system. Like it allows third party or any other companies to quickly build their own design system using native base. In 2023, we realized that there was lots of going on in particular native base, because it was compiling style, it was handling accessibility and everything on its own. So also there was a performance issue as well. So in 2023, we came up with multiple libraries, but you may know them as a GlueStack UI. So under the hood, GlueStack UI compiles of GlueStack style, GlueStack unstyle, which are headless components of your native base. And then we also added our compiled thing into GlueStack UI slash theme. And currently we are working on GlueStack UI with Native. We'll talk about that now. So speaking about Tailwind CSS component library, so most famous CSS component library for Tailwind is Shadcn UI. Many of you may know about it because it got 23,000 stars, GitHub stars last year. So this is how we built BlueStack UI with Native. So we we got patterns from Shadcn UI. So all the copy pastable elements and all the styling or the way of styling we get it from Shadcn UI. We also added our own patterns to it, and we use native wind to provide tailwind like scripting syntax. So the styling engine used in BlueStack UI with native wind is native wind. And also we extracted headless UI components from BlueStack UI. So we are using and combining them with the all these things, and we are creating a pattern which you can use and scale as well. Yeah. So let me show you a quick demo. Actually, like Rohit, I don't have a live demo. I'll just yeah. Yeah. So as you get to see, this is the basic template of how you can see how you get you get with the native win plus BlueStack UI. So you have your theme provider as well as your native views, right? So so I just added a class. I'll just added the class name here. So if you see that you just need to edit that class name to text red 500, and it automatically reflects on the app. uh, yeah, so there were some issues with the website, so I couldn't really got into the how you can do it in manual steps, but I'll add a link, I guess, in the description so you can get it. uh, yeah, so you basically add whatever component you want. So first is you BlueStack UI slash button, so we are going to add button here. Now you just have to create your folder in UI particular, or wherever you want. Just type it whatever you want. So we are going to create one index.tsx, and we're going to paste the this code, entire code of button, customized button, which comes with the BlueStack UI. So this will be available on the website. You can copy paste it from directly from there, and this is how you can use it in real time as well. Just import it from your component particular folder. Yeah, so that's it. Like we just like copy paste that element, and we just added that component into our custom library, and we can now customize however we want. So here's a quick demo of it. Like it also has built-in styling as well. So with native in v4 there's an animation support as well. So let me just show you how easy it is to animate a particular button using just two class names. Also it is fully typed, and you have a full TypeScript support as well. So that's how easy it is to just animate your class names. So let's see it on the web as well. So we are just added. Yeah, that's it. So that's how easy it is to, you know, animate your button as well. Yeah, that's it from my side. Also, shout out to entire GlueStack team and for the arranging all this thing. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Viraj. Thank you so much for telling us on how to use Tailwind CSS in React Native. So everybody can give him a big round of applause. All right, so let's quickly move on to the last speaker for the day. We have Anshdeep Kaur. She's a software developer at Engati Technologies. She has over 2 years of experience as a React and React Native developer. Her passion for technology and innovation drives her forward in the dynamic world of mobile development. So let's hear more from her. You can clap, everybody.
Yeah. Hey, hi. So everyone over here is a developer. I know that. So what does it take to be a very good and very efficient developer? What it takes is optimization. And we today are here are going to discuss about optimizing React Native and mastering component efficiency. So let's get started. Here, the first thing that we're going to take up is why. Why is optimization essential for us? So, since React Native has become increasingly popular today and is also growing, we need to ensure that the apps are efficient and have a very snappy user interface. And as the app grows in complexity, we face performance issues. Performance issues such as slow navigation, increased component hierarchy, state management challenges, and so many more about that. So the main bottlenecks that we face are usually slow navigation, janky animations, excessive render times, and network bottlenecks. Talking about slow navigation, we do notice that slow navigation occurs whenever we have heavy processing or there are like too many things to render at the same time. And janky animations are basically whenever we are trying to debounce, throttle, whenever we don't use that, we do see some janky animations around that time. Excessive render times. So, excessive render times do come whenever we have too many components in the same main component and we don't split the code. We don't see the efficiency if it is being done or not. We're just getting the things done, such as maybe we're using the main component for everything. Maybe we're using app.js, we're using index.js, we're using those for a lot of things. To avoid that, we will understand on how to do it. But first, we need to understand the need of it. The need of it is to ensure performance across diverse devices. Since there are a lot of devices in this world, a lot of different interfaces, a lot of different users who are using it with different networks, we do need to ensure that the performance is up to the mark because it will ensure the app success in the market, right? So for that, we need to understand faster loading. We need to have efficient data usage, and we need to have a competitive edge in the industry as well. So let's come up onto how do we achieve that. So before we move ahead, let's go over a fun fact. Do you know how long a modern device takes to show 60 frames per second? It's 16.67 seconds. Sorry, milliseconds. That is the time limit we have to display a frame for a smooth and a very snappy user interface. So let's see how can we achieve that. To achieve that, the first approach that we're going to take is lazy loading. I'm sure all the React developers are very familiar with the approach, but React Native has also introduced that as well. And here we do see that while navigation we face this issue that the navigation is slow, the app startup is slow. We see that Hermes does help in that, but lazy loading can enhance that performance, right? We can achieve that as in the right screenshot. You can see that there's a component that is called major component. We're using lazy loading to import that, and a suspense as well right around here, right? Next up, we have image optimization. Now, since we discussed lazy loading, we're going to discuss image optimization as well here. Now, image optimization can be done by lazy loading, compressing the image on the server side, caching the image as we have done over here using React Native image cache, wherein we are sending the source, the styling, and the thumbnail source. Along with that, we also have fast image, with which we can achieve that using React Native fast image. Here on the right side, you can see the example that displays that fast image. In the fast image, we can provide the source wherein the URI is provided, the priority of the image is provided, the styling is also provided with it. But there's a drawback to it. The drawback is that there's no support, or there's a lack of support of .svg format, which a lot of industries do use that. So this would lack in that. So I would, like, as a personal opinion, I do prefer caching the images first. And moving on, we have like the most underrated approach, that is code splitting. Code splitting is also done in React. A lot of us are familiar with that. Moving on, here we do reduce the initial bundle size and improve the startup time. It ensures that the app refreshes, loads the component whenever it is necessary. So here we are breaking down the code into smaller chunks, into smaller bundles, wherein we are able to split it and reduce the bundle size and reduce the time that it is taking to load. This is useful for underperforming applications. That would be huge applications that are not using this approach, or maybe are not on the latest React Native version. That's also a possibility. And also in modular applications. Now, applications can be something of the sort that there's an employee, there's an employer, and that there's an admin, right? We're trying to make a common application for all three of those. We can separate the user interface for them using code splitting. When at the time of login, we can ask them what is the user ID, right? The password. On that, we can decide on whatever code are we trying to load. And in that, when we have bundle sizing done and the bundles are made, we won't be loading unnecessary bundles as well. That would be the admin side trying to get the employee code or the employer code, right? Here we can see an example of the same, wherein we have account and profile data. We are trying to get the data of the profile using an API. That's a simple thing over here. In the return statement, we're using the count, we're displaying the count, we're showing the profile data. There's nothing wrong with that. We're using two use states, right? But there would be a situation where we would not have two use states. We would have 20, we would have 200, not 200 exactly, but yes, somewhere around 20. Even that is not suggested because it would lead to excessive re-renders. How can we optimize it? By code splitting. Here I have two of the states, that is count and profile data. I'll be splitting it into my component and profile data. We can see that over here that I've split the count to a separate component, and now I'm loading the profile data over here, wherein any changes that are being made in the profile details won't be reflecting or won't be affecting this component. Here we can see that profile details is there, and we are trying to get the response from the API over here and present it over here, right? So this, what did this prevent? This prevented the change or the reloading or the refreshing of the count that was over here. In the previous approach, we would have made a change in the count every time we were fetching the data, because it would have reset the states over here and it would have given it another refresh around it. Yeah. So there is another way of approaching this problem. We can use re.pack, that is a toolkit that we use to use Webpack and to use code splitting features. Now in this, we have a chunk manager with which we can make multiple chunks and divide the bundle into multiple parts, right? So when we divide the bundle into multiple parts, we do achieve the successful loading of the data whenever we want to load it, right? Now it allows us the creation of suspense, as I had presented in one of the examples, based on chunks in the application. But what does it mean to use RE.pack over here? It means that you're moving away from the Metro bundler. There are some leverages that we get with the Metro bundler, but if you are not using that, if you're not using those features, there might be this would be your solution to your problems or to even pace up your application. Next up, we have efficient virtualized lists. Now, everyone over here is aware of what a flat list is. We also had a question of that. Yes? So why would I suggest using a flash list over a flat list? It is because it is known for its optimal performance in even low-end Android applications. And unlike flat list, flash list uses the list items, but it does not reset the state in the use state hook. Now, we had recently discussed on how does use state affect our performance, our application, our components re-rendering. This would help us avoid that. So there's an additional property which I would like to point out in Flash List, which is an add-on feature after Flat List. That is an estimated item size. It is a single numeric value that hints the flash list about the approximate size of items before they're rendered. Now, what does this mean for a flash list? It means for a flash list that you can tell the flash list that this is the number of items that it's going to load. It would have an approximate, and hence it would be ready to handle that kind of a load, right? What does a flash list do? It just gets you the data, whatever is required in the viewport, right? Moving on, as we had discussed about Hermes engine, in React 0.73, we do have this as a default one. So Hermes garbage collection is there, and it is, I would highly advise to use that because it is designed to optimize memory management, reduce runtime memory usage, and improving the app responsiveness, right? So what does Hermes garbage collector mean to a developer? It means that whenever you're using the application, you might see things that are leaking, memory leaks that are happening, or maybe some bottlenecks that you're facing, right? So this would help you achieve that kind of a success that would not allow the application to have memory leaks, or maybe you could collect the garbage around that. Next, we could also leverage one of the features that is runtime optimization. It would include ahead of time compilations and bytecode pre-compilation, right? What does it mean? So what we were doing previously were we were compiling the code and then we were sending it over to the system, to the React Native, the UI to present it. Here, we are compiling it and then it is directly going in wherever and whatever is necessary, that much is going in over here. So, what are the other strategies that would be there to reduce the unwarranted re rendering? As this was all about reducing re rendering, how else can we achieve it apart from these topics? There would be memoization. Now, memoization is using React.memo, use memo hooks to memorize expensive computation or prevent the re-renders whenever the components dependencies remain unchanged, right? Next up is component optimization. Now, component optimization means utilizing pure components or HOCs, that is higher order components, to prevent the re-renders unless the component so sorry unless the components props have been changed, right? Next up, we have state optimization. Now, state optimization would mean avoiding the creation of unnecessary states or even splitting a state into even smaller states or even smaller variables, even smaller pieces to limit the scope of re-renders. Now, there's another one, event handler optimization. Here, we would memorize event handlers or wrap them in use callbacks to prevent the recreation on each render. We can also use bounce, we can use throttling, we can leverage those and debounce everything that the user is maybe typing in. We can achieve that purpose. Next, we have selective rendering. Selective rendering is basically implementing should component update react.memo to selectively render a specific to selectively render on based on specific conditions and specific requirements. We can render a component on that. This was basically similar to what we were trying to achieve previously with that purpose of code splitting with the chunk bundler. We can achieve it using that as well. So yeah, that's about it. And feel free to connect at my LinkedIn. Here's my handle. Thank you.
Thank you, Anshdeep, for such insightful talk about discussing profiling tools and best practices. All right. I hope you guys have kept your questions ready. We have a panel discussion right now. You do have your questions ready, right? Just check. Good. All right. Let's quickly set up the stage for them. Also, give a big round of applause for Anshdeep.
We have done that already, and we have been receiving CFPs from all these nice people. Yeah. Okay, so we are doing a conference. It's called the Geek Conf, as you all know. Would love to have you guys, even I mean you folks, to speak at the conference. Yeah. Have you already applied for it, Ayush? Uh, Okay, because I have been pushing you from React India. Okay. Probably. So, yeah, Ayush was a co-speaker with me at React India last year, and I saw him at the breakfast table, and he was with a big bowl of eggs, hogging. I can see those in your biceps now for sure. Anyway, I really liked all of your talks and also the keynote by Shivraj. We have been doing a lot of things as a community here in Bangalore or global as React Native. And I truly believe that this year, 2024, is meant for React Native and React Native going universal. Uh, Universal as in use React Native everywhere. And all my personal work and people who have been working with me in and around at GeekyAnts, we have been chasing that dream for quite a while. Is it all set? Can I actually talk now? Okay, small talk done. Now serious talk. Just kidding. Okay, cool. So yeah, very nice talks around styling again, performance, and a few things. Yeah, server-driven UI, right? I do have some questions. I think even the audience have some questions, but let's start with probably the new kid in the town, the cool kid in the town. And I think people on my right know about it. So React Strict DOM. Would love to hear thoughts. I mean, it was just recently announced, I think 3 days back. And yeah, I won't share my thoughts. I was about to, but yeah, would love to hear thoughts if you folks had a chance to look at it. And what are your initial thoughts? Is it a gimmick or is it a futuristic thing? Probably we can start with Ayush. You want to go first? Yeah.
So I just read a couple of threads regarding it. I just saw, a brief overview, but it looks like they're unifying the APIs for React Native and the web, right? So that looks like a step in right direction. Eventually, I feel like the best code is no code at all. So, and I live by that principle. So I think if we can unify those APIs, that would be a step in right direction.
No code as in the no code thing, or like go back to the farms?
I mean, so uh, the more you, the lesser you write the code, the lesser you have to debug, the lesser you have to work on it and maintain it, right? So that's a great thing, right?
Interesting. Yeah. Love that thought. Ashdeep.
Yeah. So, since it was just released 3 days ago, since it was announced that, I just had a very brief amount of time to skim through the details. And yes, my thoughts align with him as well that good code is no code. Basically, lesser code is good code, right? And if we can say a lot of things, if we can do a lot of things in a very less amount of code, yes, that would be a great thing. And I think it's futuristic. Yes.
Interesting. Makes a lot of sense. I think I'll head out to Shivraj next, but I'll change the question a bit because I know him personally and he has been working on apps that has like millions of users on a daily basis. And you have been working on React Native and React as well. Do you feel that there was a pain of people jumping back and forth between React Native and React developers coming to you and saying, no, this is React Native, I don't do it, and React Native developers doing the same thing for React? Do you feel that it'll go away? And yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the APIs are different, the core APIs. So there's a pain always when we jump from React Native to React, or either React to React Native, specifically because React is basically for web and then React Native is for mobile. The core APIs are different. That's where even with React Native web, we can't specifically create application which works similar to React in web platform. So React strict DOM, I mean, it would help in terms of like bringing those APIs closer for different platforms. Uh, Same again as Ayush or Anshdeep mentioned, I have just skimmed through like the tweets that are there and also some experiments that people have done it. It's exciting, but at the same time, a little skeptical about how the APIs would work rather for different platform. I mean, the focus is mainly on the web APIs, right? So how those APIs going to work for different platform, that I'm a little skeptical about.
Yeah, I think I have been hearing the same from the creator of Native Wind as well. Even internally, we had something similar. Like we were React Native first, and then React Native Web was the adoption of React Native on the web. But now
it's just the opposite. It's React Web first, and React Native is trying to adopt that, and that brings in all the problems of React Web, something like context-based styling, right? Like CSS directly supports that, and now we'll have to use JavaScript to add that layer. So that, yeah, pain, I can
Yes,
feel that.
yes.
Yeah. Great. I think question for both of you are slightly different because you both have been working on GlueStack. And so, what's the impact on the library authors when it comes to this? Would you like go back and do a hackathon to change all your code that you have written in past 1 year?
Yeah, so I was just talking about this only with a few of the folks. So, libraries are also like library authors are also skeptical about like even we are like I'm skeptical about migrating to the new new incoming changes from React Native team. So because in a span of an year, a lot of things are already changing, and it's a very volatile environment right now. And I'm not sure like personally I think I would like to wait for like 2 or 3 months, like see things how things are going, and then maybe things can be decided later.
I think Shivraj made a very good point that most of the pain points comes from the as React Native state survey as well stated that most of the developers come from the web API. Also, learning that we at GlueStack as well, we try to make some adjustment to onboard them easily, but React Strict DOM actually does it very better. Uh, it is still in early stages, but I would say it getting more adaptation. So we as a library author can also work on that.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I hope people in the audience are aware about React Strict DOM. Yes? Yeah? Okay. Cool. I'm not supposed to share my views, but I think this is one of the tipping points in the React ecosystem where things change. And if this happens, then this is going to change the entire game of React ecosystem. There's not going to be two different teams for mobile and web, or React and React Native. It's just one single team. It's that big of a change. So yeah, keep your eyes on it. Great. So next question is about Expo Router V3. Uh, and I'm not sure if people in the panel have worked on it. And comparing that with the next app router as well. It's similar, but do we like give up completely on Next.js and just use Expo for everything, or are there cases when and where we should use Next.js or Remix, for example, or is Expo now in 2024 that powerful to be used like everywhere? We can start maybe some random people. Yeah, okay, maybe Rohit.
Yeah, so I've tried Expo Router for my personal application, and so it's I feel it's like very close to next how next app router works, but like there are few bugs I faced while building with it, and sometimes the things I expect to work the way they should work, it doesn't do that. So like uh, Expo Router is a good thing. I think V4 is also coming very soon, or I'm not sure it's launched already, but I think they will be addressing more of the pain points there.
Yeah, so one of the creator of Expo, right? Expo router, Evan, right? So he was in on one podcast. So he stated that in V4 there won't be a V4, there will be a entire new framework around it. So they will also introduce bundle splitting and other next features as well. So I would suggest that if you are using React only webs, then for now next is a safe bet. If you are building something universal, so that comes with like deep linking and all features which are there in Expo router. So that helps as well. So if
Yeah,
you are using universal, that's way to.
makes sense. You should tell that to me in the stand-ups too. Okay.
I
Yeah.
completely agree with Viraj. I mean, if you want to go the web route, you just go with Next.js at the moment. Expo Auto has a lot of potential. Definitely, when you're building a universal app or something for mobile and web, you should go with that. But again, it brings in the ecosystem around it as well, the Expo ecosystem, which binds you as well, specifically to use certain things about it. So obviously, if you want to go with Universal App, just go with it. But yeah, for web, I would still go with Next.js.
Yeah, so I have not worked much with Next.js, but I have my views on Expo that there are some limitations that come with it. And I feel like it's a little less more scalable as it comes with an environment, as Shivraj has suggested. There are things that come up, there are limitations in it. And I feel like Expo is something that I would still be a little like hiccup there to maybe use it, to go forth with it. I would feel like there's a hiccup in that.
Makes sense.
Well, I come from a web background, so I've been using Next.js pretty extensively. So looking at it, it looked fair. When I just had a look at it, it looked fairly comparable. The syntax, the way they have abstracted things. So in a way, I believe they are trying to standardize. We're living in a world of abstractions, one thing on top of the other, right? So I felt like this is very much analogous to what we have in Next.js. But as you mentioned, there's in-house support for deep link as well. But well, I can tell you from the Next.js side, well, there's not, and I had to bear the pain of manually adding that. So that looks promising to me.
Makes sense. I could like double down on this question a bit, but maybe later, maybe offline. Yeah, for everybody, because I'm curious. I want to know some answers. Maybe later. I'll move on to using React Native beyond, say, Android and iOS. We have discussed a bit on the website, right? Maybe for desktop apps. Is that still a thing, or people like? Do you guys choose Electron plus React and not React Native, or maybe Tori, for example, which is I think Rust based? So the question is React Native for desktop apps or something else?
Well, here's my hot take. I think that depends on case to case basis. So, for instance, if I have my React Native application running and I have a bunch of developers working on a React Native app for a fairly long time, I would maybe prefer to have React Native for Windows, right? But for someone like me, if I have been working on a web application, refining it over the years, then I think the faster solution and more wiser solution would be to go for Electron. Again, I'm not against one or the other, but I feel like that might depend on case to case basis.
Yep, totally agreed with the what he said. It would depend on case to case basis, but as a React Native developer, I would feel much more comfortable making applications, making web applications using React Native, as I'm very much familiar with it. I know if there are like a little on add-ons, I will be able to take those up, as in compared with the taking up Electron. And if for instance I'm a developer who's not aware of what Electron is, it would be a lot that would be required to take over Electron and then move forth with it. And if I know React Native, I would most probably just go forth with it.
Yeah, I think
So
I'll
that would
just
be on
interrupt
that.
there
Yeah.
for both of you. I think it's coming. The answer is coming from your personal experience side.
Yeah.
That's totally obvious. But the question also has a part wherein can you maybe share your thoughts on the stability of React Native for Windows or macOS, if you guys have any idea. Otherwise, it's totally okay.
For Windows and macOS, I wouldn't have a lot of opinion with React Native, but yes, I think we can have a discussion about it offline. Yeah.
Ayush, have you worked?
Well, for as for the Electron part, well, I had some experience looking into ways we can port our application to Electron, and it from the I can judge it from the performance lens. Well, performance wasn't that great, so that's something I acknowledge. But I would be curious to explore how React Native for Windows would scale for performance.
Makes sense. I think that's official by Microsoft. Yeah.
I think my personal view would be if a desktop app is an add-on on top of like web and mobile app, then definitely go with React Native or tvOS or macOS. But if it's a separate application where you're targeting a different audience specifically to that platform, I would still go with a different code base for that.
Okay. So would you use React Native for that, or React for desktop apps?
Right now, I think React,
Okay.
Electron, or maybe.
Yeah, something similar to what Slack does. Okay,
Yes.
all right, makes sense. Any views on that? You both?
I personally don't have much experience with it, but I would like to see like React Native being used on Mac OS and Windows as well. Mostly, even if we see that universal aspect, right? So most of the time we don't actually share the whole code base; we just share the components. So it might be great to share the code component library or something like that to TVS, and that would work if that work.
Yeah, the question is very subjective to, yeah, like as Ayush mentioned, the use case that you have, and if I'm building straight away for only one of those platforms, maybe it macOS or Windows, it depends on bunch of factor, my experience, or my team's experience, and then uh, like if I already have something ready for shipping. So that's one case. But yeah, Microsoft is already pushing for React Native on Windows, so that's a good backing for that. So maybe in future, that might be the go-to way of for building for a Windows application. Uh, on the macOS front, I don't have much idea about that. What's happening? But I've seen some applications out there on Twitter as well. Like they have been building with React Native itself, so people are using it, but not widely adopted. And Tauri is a new thing that has gained a lot of traction currently. And the GitHub stars performance report also, they were on second position, I think. And I've seen that, but they are not. I didn't find it attractive enough to try it out. But yeah, maybe.
Interesting. I think that also boils down to what you see on social media and versus what the actual life of developers are and what you use on a daily basis, right? Again, I think circles back to my first thing, like gimmick versus futuristic, right? I mean, what you see on Twitter and LinkedIn, that might not be the mainstream at all. Like, and people on Twitter also say this quite often, that 75% of the websites are built using WordPress even today. Yeah, so that's weird. One last question, again on the same lines, gimmick or futuristic. This is a bit related to React Native because I've seen people doing React Native plus Apple Vision OS. Would love your thoughts on like React Native first and maybe Apple Vision Pro altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's good to see like React Native being used in a lot of places, like even Vision OS, and like even we experimented with that, right? So that's nice. But in my personal opinion, like the Vision OS, the whole project, it's a gimmick. Like I don't want like player one scenario, something like that, like living inside of Goggle, right? So,
Uh, yeah, somewhat agreed with Rohit. Like it's still too early to like say how people are going to use it or just throw it away as a another toy tool. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Thoughts?
I mean, I don't have any thoughts on terms of like the actual product, but in terms of the technology building applications on the Vision OS as well, everything boils down to, I mean, whether it is Mac OS version of it or the Windows OS version of it, everything is like people are forking it and adding a support on top of it. It's not particularly building specifically to that platform. We are kind of bringing the support to those platforms, not particularly working on the platform APIs, right? So it's just a support that is added, but definitely there are a lot of potential towards it. But yeah, it's more on like as we divulge more into building applications with that, we'll be able to find out more in terms of how the capabilities are in terms of using it.
Makes sense. And before we move forward, I have a follow-up question on the same lines for you three folks, maybe. React Native like lagged behind in the announcement when iOS came out or Android came out, and iOS and Android basically had a head start of like few years. And with Vision OS, I mean, Vision OS was announced and React Native for Vision OS is announced at the, I mean, within a gap of like 2 weeks, right? Would we see like more React Native apps on Vision OS than iOS apps, native apps.
Maybe I think it's also boils around to the ecosystem and also the community around it. uh, React Native community has been, I mean, moving very fast in the last couple of years. Whatever things comes out next into the world in terms of technology, React Native community is really adapting very fast. I mean, with the last major update, the new architecture, after that it has like evolving very fastly. I mean, in terms of any kind of support, whether it is for different technology or adapting to new products out there. So yeah, it's evolving very fast. So I think we'll go in that direction.
Yeah. So about Vision OS, I feel like it would be a futuristic thing with React Native because, as you said, it was announced almost at the same time with a difference of 2 weeks. And I feel like it is something futuristic because there is, I feel, a user base for it. There are people who are working on React Native as well and who would be somewhere or the other interested in what is Vision OS offering. How is it working? What is it offering? And how can we leverage those things in our own code base or maybe our own applications or maybe a totally new application? So I feel it would get some sort of user support in that and it would be futuristic in that sense.
Okay, makes sense.
Well, as you mentioned, it only took 2 weeks for them to roll out React Native for Vision OS. That's the beauty of it. I think the pace at which they are developing, it's fairly commendable. So at the same time, I think having React Native for Vision OS definitely unblocks a lot of teams and a lot of engineers to actually put their applications and make them compliant for Vision OS. And why not? Of course, they will be tapping into that market for Vision OS. And as for the Vision OS, well, uh, here's what I feel like. Maybe uh, in terms of productivity, maybe it's a step in right direction, and I think maybe making us connected in a way, but at the same time, I feel maybe it's making it disconnected to the closed ones. So that's how it rolls.
Yeah, makes sense. One of the use cases that I saw yesterday on Instagram, uh, an artist, like wall painting artist, was using Vision Pro. So she had her traces, like the grayscale traces, and she had put it inside Vision Pro on one of the walls, and she was painting on top of it, basically tracing her rough sketch on a real wall, and the painting came out to be like really amazing. I think that's one of the use cases which never existed before. But I totally agree with like the matrix world that we are seeing with the step one towards that, right? So yeah, makes a lot of sense. We'll open up for the audience. I think they had some interesting questions which they couldn't ask. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, just a second. I think we'll give you the mic for the remote audience. You are audible enough here.
Hey, hi guys. First of all, a great talk by all of you, right? So, uh, my question goes to Ayush, basically, because since you have talked about pushing code onto the fly, right? So, since you have talked it, I got your basic principles of it, saying that there is a fixed contract between
Yes.
client and server, and that's how you coordinate, right? You communicate,
Right.
right? So my point comes on to the very basic fundamental saying that we already had a lot of code push technologies like Microsoft Code Push or Firebase
Of
Remote
course.
Config
Yeah.
that did the job very well, right?
Mm.
So in which case do you actually end up using the fixed term contract instead of pushing the bundle directly on the fly, where you do not have to depend on a fixed term contract?
So suppose there's a Sev one, right? I push something for a search component and it's not working, right? Uh, I would rather prefer my this capability to have this capability on myself and my service to roll out a fix as soon as possible than to maybe code push for that matter, right? So that's how I feel like it makes the thing really powerful. At the same time, suppose if I have the capability to change the layout on the fly, I have the entire thing, right? So it unlocks a whole new world of personalization, right? So based on the state of the user in the system, I can push them a different UI, which maybe I wouldn't be able to do with the code push, because hey, with code push it would either be the older build or the newer build, right? But suppose if I have 10 different tests, 10 different personalized layouts, then of course server driven UI would be a great choice.
Okay, so you mean wherever the content is changing and deployment is your priority? I mean, the fastest deployment is your priority. But what about the? I'm just trying to wonder out, because the UI is only the what users see it. But there's anyway always underlying network calls a business logic written, right? How
Right.
you will you be able to push that? Is it possible?
Yes. So, well, my talk only talked about the UI part of UI side of things, of course. But imagine we have this capability of running the deriving and running the actions on the fly. So if I want to change the API endpoint on the fly, well, I would simply be tapping into the endpoint of my generic Fire API action. So it's responsible for firing any API, any URL that I give. So, or maybe I want to poll on something, right? So I just provide a polling endpoint and it would be able to do that. So it's not just UI on the fly, but yeah, actions on the fly are also possible. So it makes it really powerful.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Isn't it just exactly like React server components? How different? I mean, I just enlighten me with like how is it different with RSCs?
Well, in a fairly large organization, I feel like uh, having a contract is really important, right? So uh, the biggest advantage that what I felt like with server driven UI is having the same contract. So backend and client, they're speaking the same language. So if I make a change to my interface, that will eventually be cascaded to their layer as well. That's what I feel is the biggest advantage over RACs.
Yeah, next question. Can we pass the mic to him? We can keep the one of the mics there. Yeah.
Hey, so if you compare the Flutter and a React Native, so even though the Flutter is getting more stars on GitHub, if you compare the new architecture, so the performance still is low compared to Flutter. So how you see the future of the React Native? And the second point, the future for the cross-platform applications will be the WebAssembly or still the Flutter or a React Native? Thank
Okay,
you.
good question. I didn't get your name.
Hari.
Hari. Okay, Hari. Who wants to take this question? Not me.
No, no, no.
No, no. We are not doing that here. Okay.
I
Yeah.
have 7 years experience in the React Native. I'm core hard believer in the React Native, but now see the
We are
things
not
that-
we are not biased. You can have your seat. Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you
yes.
so much for the question. uh, I watched this very nice video by Varun Maya just 2 days back that I also shared it in my Slack channel. It says that don't get married to technologies, and we keep saying that over and over again at GeekyAnts and also at our meetups. In fact, we used to have Flutter and React Native meetups both at the same time. The first part used to be React Native, and the second part used to be Flutter. And in the panel, we used to have this question, what Hari just asked. uh, I have some views. I think if we go deeply technical, both the architectures are very different. One may be good for mobile, like games or animations, while the other might be good for like native integrations, what's available. So it boils down to it depends, without taking sides, but also like as Ayush and few other folks mentioned on the panel that what's your like skill sets are. If you are a JavaScript developers and if you want to build a startup, just go ahead and build that in whatever ways that you know, whatever skill set. uh, and I think answering to this question here on the stage, there is a high possibility of going wrong because most of us are React and React Native developers, and it wouldn't be fair for answering this question without having any Flutter expertise over here. I hope we all agree on that. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Probably in the Flutter meetup, and we can bring in some React Native folks, and then have uh, probably set up a ring here and put them in a boxy ring. Yeah. Yeah. Who wants to take it? Web Wasm fans. Yeah. Okay, I have some experience. When we were building a design tool, it's you can sit down, Hari. Thank you. Yeah. So Figma is built using Wasm. That's a very specific use case of using Wasm. So if you have something like old 8-bit games like Contra or Mario, you can easily use Wasm and put it inside the browser. Uh, if you want to get down to the memory allocation level, the processing, parallel processing, and all those things, definitely use it. Figma wanted to build a browser inside a browser, and that's why they wrote everything from scratch, because they didn't trust the Chrome engine enough, or the differences between the Firefox engine and all these things. They built their own. They just used a 2D rendering layer and put their own C++ logic, and they're using it. And that makes perfect sense for some companies like Figma. For web apps, for mobile apps, I don't think for business apps it makes sense for flows and all those things. Even for games, we have React Native Skia, for example. That's very good, and you can use it from the JavaScript layer. If you talk about static Hermes is the next generation of Hermes engine, which has performed like better than native code. So I think again using JavaScript and betting on JavaScript is a good thing. Wasm has its own place on using the existing ecosystem and whatnot. So again, it depends. Like comparing Flutter with React Native or Wasm with JavaScript or static Hermes, it's very subjective, I would say. Long
Yeah,
answer.
thank you.
Yeah.
So
All
I
right.
have one more. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So as you said, the React Native you use for Vision Pro. So the image processing, everything happened on the JavaScript side, or still we have to write on the C++ as the libraries as OpenCV or something. So what do
Yeah, so everything is on the JavaScript side itself. I mean, ultimately it boils down to native layer, but yeah, whatever the code we write, it's from the JavaScript layer itself.
so but still, if you see the JavaScript ecosystem is more the front end layer, right? So there is not much on the image processing, or even though if you see the entire Vision Pro, the more sensors and the cameras are there. So end of day, we have to do the image processing, right? So how much is efficient? Or yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The APIs around it so far has been built just to use the APIs which is available for React Native so far. So the forked version of React Native that the call stack has built for Vision Pro is just a forked version of React Native, not specific to using the Vision Pro APIs, but just to build out an application in the Vision Pro which we can just have a view of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Which I really noticed that which works very well for WebAssembly compared to the code that we write in JSX or JavaScript. Like the first one is performance when you do with respect to GPU, any mathematical calculation that you do, right, always works well whenever you use a WebAssembly, right, instead of JavaScript. Anything that you in JavaScript works well when you're only playing with the UI or the network layer part of it, not the CPU processing part of it. Right.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Right. So in our one of the old project where I worked on that, only just to do the mathematical calculation, right? We translated ourselves into WebAssembly part of it, and that gave us a huge impact in production.
Yeah. Even this company that does camera library from Austria, Vision Camera, that uses a lot of C++. That guy, Mark, the CEO of Mariello, he also built a crypto library, and the crypto calculation happens on the C++ layer because obviously calculations are faster on C++. So makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Some of the React Native also use the Rust for the uh, Web3, all the calculation networking. So yeah, that is happening.
I think we can go on and on with the list of technologies, but yeah, don't use something that is hot. Use something that makes sense for you, I would say. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Hello, my name is Vinay. Uh, Actually, I'm new to React Native, so I have created an app using React Native Expo. It's almost completed, but its size of that app is almost 150 MB. It's, though it's too high for that kind of project. So I tried so many things on Google and how to reduce size and all. So I just need some suggestions to reduce that size.
Who wants to take it?
Some of my senior told me to shift to React Native based CLI, so it will be less. But is there any suggestions?
Yeah, I think mostly because of the modules that might be using. I mean, maybe the boilerplate code that you have selected, it had a lot of third-party.
I'm using
modules.
BlueStack.
Sorry, not particular. I mean, I'm just saying because you init your project from the expo, right? Maybe you're using a boilerplate which has a lot of expo modules or pre-built on to that. So just check which are the modules that you're not using, because a lot of modules are built in when you're using boilerplate code, the third-party modules or the expo modules that comes with it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think it used to be like the bundle size that you're saying the app APK size. It used to be a big problem 3 years back. Expo, when they announced their config plugins, they also announced that they are going like a lot smaller on the APK and IPA file size. So check the version maybe. And GlueStack UI is on the JS layer, so it does not add anything beyond yeah some KBs. So not 150. It's like way beyond. It's like 300x, not because of GlueStack UI for sure.
No, I'm just saying I faced a similar situation with building my application. I created a small application. It just had one screen, and it does a bunch of calculation, and still it has a like 120 MB APK. So even I'm not. I left it and I moved on.
So he didn't want to answer. He wanted to empathize.
So I'll give you one working solution probably. Whenever you generate a EPK, you get two SO files, 8086 and ARM processor. Okay, you will have to Google it out that how do we delete, because most of the mobile phones, even in India or in US, works only on ARM processor, not an Intel 8086. So you remove the Intel 806 SO files, right? Just figure out how do we delete those SO files. It will trim down your APK just by flat 50%. Just give it a try.
Yeah, more questions? Maybe last couple of questions. Yeah.
So hi guys, hi everyone. My name is Shanu. So last from 6 months, I'm working on React Native. So I'm still in confusion, like what styling library I need to use. Like Rohit and Viraj were telling about React Native style and Tailwind and GlueStack also. So what is the best kind of thing like I need to use for the styling? I know like there is no best kind of thing for styling, but still if I would need to choose only one library for styling, what would that be and why?
I also empathize with this problem. Maybe you guys have solution because yeah, I think fragmentation is. What's your name?
Sharanu.
Sharnu. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, this has been the problem with the React ecosystem. Earlier, it was the state management that got sorted with use state, and now we have styling library in React Native. Yeah, would love to. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Anshdeep.
So for styling, I have a personal preference of using native base. It's very easy to use, it's very quick to understand, and I feel like even as a beginner, I had started off as a React Native developer. And to pick on the properties, to pick on the changes that have been made in native base, and to understand what all is doing functioning as what, it is very easy to understand that. And as a developer, it was a very smooth experience for me to go with that, so I would suggest that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so native base is no longer maintained. Yeah.
BlueStack, right?
No, she was mentioning right native base. So native base is no longer maintained. Like no future updates will be there. So we have pivoted to GlueStack right now. So it has a similar API. Just some features are trimmed down that had like performance that increase performance benefits. So you should use GlueStack if you are going that way. or if you're just learning, I think just make your application with pure React Native. Don't use any styling and understand the pain points. Then use styling. Then you
Yeah,
will
I do understand
appreciate it more.
because
Yeah.
I built a whole app with a style sheet only, core
Yeah.
CSS. So I know the pain behind it. So that is why question.
So you can now.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Rohit. Yeah. So, I mean, what are the pain points? Just match it with the libraries, what's out there. And I would suggest that use something stable coming from a credible source. Uh, I'm looking at StyleX by Meta, for example. That's by Meta, and that is paired with React Strict DOM, for example. So high hopes on that. Second is Native Wind, which is a very good styling solution. That's by Expo. These two are high on the list and coming from a credible source, and that's very important. What Rohit built is very good. It's experimental. That's what he mentioned in his talk. So if he says that he's going to maintain it, and in the like maybe in the next survey he puts it out there with the React Native survey, and people start using it, then it makes a lot of sense. Maybe yeah. So depending on if you understand the library and if you can fork it at any point, then go ahead and use any library, I would say, right? So yeah, these are some of the points that make sense to, I mean, parameters to judge when what to use, right? Yeah, he had a question.
Hello, Ayush. Actually, my question is specifically related to you.
Yes.
Basically, we talked about state synchronization between server and client. So wouldn't it be a good idea to use HTMX instead of React or Next.js?
Sorry, what was your question again?
We talked about state synchronization between client and server.
Mhm.
Like instead of maintaining multiple states, we can have only one state maintained by server. In React, we do the same thing, but we keep a state of in client side as well. So it's kind of duplication of state just to synchronize. So if we use STMX, its concept, selling concept is obviously your state is going to be synchronized automatically and handled by server.
Interesting, because well, here's what I feel like would be a right approach. So if you think about it, well, uh, if you want to synchronize the state, right, what if you are able to share a same construct of action between client and server? So if your client and server speak the same language of actions, that hey, I understand that this action is supposed to make this modification in the state, right? So that will unify that bridge, right? So and that's what we had been doing. So if you have, let's say, uh, create user action, right? You want to create a new onboard a new user to your platform. Well, what you would be doing, a client would be sending the request with this specific action, and this specific action only accepts a certain contract, which is your interface, and then that again will be shared between client and server. So yeah, that's how I feel like would be a right way.
Actually, I was just worried about like bloatware comes with React. Like you have to use Redux, and if application grows, you have to use global management system. Even if we skip Redux, we use context.
Yes.
But still, we have lots of like bloatwares, lots of JavaScript, and even if we render it on server,
Hmm. That actually depends, right? That is the cost you pay for the convenience, right? For a better developer experience, right? Yeah.
yeah, that's a difference
Uh,
actually.
because, of course, I mean, uh, applications have been growing consistently, right? It's fair to say that we are shipping lots of JavaScript now, but that's the cost. You have to decide whether or not you are willing to pay that cost, because you have to understand your target audience. So if your target audience maybe is running on a older runtime, let's say we're talking about Chrome 38, and maybe a Chrome 38 user would be running on Windows 8 machine with 1 GB of RAM, right? So I mean, for that use case, I would rather prefer something else. But if I understand that my browser share is coming from Chrome 100 plus, then I would expect them to have a better performance, right?
It's yes, and it's all kind of like depends on the project requirements
Case basis,
and
yeah.
the team.
Cannot generalize, but yeah, depends on case basis.
Thank you.
I think yeah, one last question, yeah, we can take.
Hi, my name is Deepak Yadav. I am 3 months old React Native developer, and I have so much issue in styling because most of time I get work for styling. So I want most of time I try to use a third party library in our styling, but my tech lead said to use custom CSS. So using third party library is good, or we should use custom CSS.
I think, yeah.
I mean, it depends on the ease of building the components. I mean, obviously, when you're building a component with the default styling that comes with React Native, the style sheet, obviously you don't get a overhead, but at the same time, uh, cost of building the components are more, right? You have to style every component from the scratch. But when you're using a third-party library, which is better to build, or even you get customization over top of it, right? The cost of development at the same time shipping the development becomes much easier and faster.
Yeah, but tech lead said it's make our app is slow, so it's right. Whenever we use third party library.
Not particularly slow, but it adds a overhead because there's a compilation of what you're writing in terms of styling, right? So there's going to be an overhead, but not particularly slow performance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think very insightful answers and good questions by everyone. Love it. And I think most of the questions ended up in the answer that it depends. And yeah, so yeah, thank you so much for speaking and attending. And we'll take photographs probably for the speakers first, and then we'll call everybody here. Is that the plan, Sana? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you.